Hello, everyone. This is ABJ. Please like the page and also spread the link. We bless God and we celebrate having surpassed the 40,000 followers mark. It's all because of you. It's not about getting following, because some they can even go to an extent of buying. But what's the need? What's the purpose of buying a following that is not feeding from the trough? We believe from ABJ, we are taking the gospel to you, undiluted as it is. God is seeking people who will worship him in spirit and in truth. So we are part of the host all over the world that is thriving and striving to drill the word of God, taking the word of God into your home. And remember, we are on lockdown, but church is never on lockdown. So welcome to our Thursday service. And today, you and I, we are blessed because we have God's generals, not ordinary people at all. Of course, to Mr. Java, they are my friends. But to Apostle Java, they are my brothers and sisters in this gospel, as Paul was with Timothy and Titus, as Paul was with Barnabas, as Peter was with John. So are we sojourning together in this gospel of truth. And today we are touching a subject, yes, a subject that has been only scratched on the surface. Why now? We could have tackled it when this pandemic started. But you know what? Whenever a pandemic starts, the atmosphere gets clouded with conspiracy theories. So there was a tearing each other apart. Some believing that COVID-19 is a biological warfare. Some believing is the apocalyptic end of the world. So, is it an act of etymology? Are we coming to an end of the world? There were viruses before. The bubonic virus, the Spanish flu, the Ebola virus, SARS virus, and all these viruses are viruses, some of them has been existing for decades and centuries, but only that they have mutated. So in my research on COVID-19, I learned that actually that the coronavirus was a flu which was existent since way back. But why has it become a pandemic now? Because science said it's mutated and it changed into an organism that the body cannot combat. So today I am gifted, I am blessed, because I'm not only with apostolic headship, I am also with a psychiatrist, the deputy director of psychiatry in the whole nation of Zimbabwe, together with his wife, who is not only a pastor, but is also a legal practitioner, a lawyer. So I am with academics, I am with both divine wisdom and the mind of the learned. So get ready to hear from the mind of the learned and the tongue of the wise as we are taking and tackling the pandemic which has baffled the whole world, that the rich, the poor, the great and the might, those in power and those who are rude, all alike have been whipped down to our last point of desperation in trying to get rid of this pandemic. So, be you a Christian, or you may be a man of God, you may be a faith person, a staunch believer, or you are a secular person, a heathen, whichever, however, this pandemic is affecting everybody and is so communicable. It is spread by a Christian as much as it's spread by a non-believer. And the knowledge that's going to be shared today is a knowledge that's going to help you by equipping you, not only if you wake up one day and you are a victim of the virus, but even though it does not directly affect you by carrying the contamination in your body, but the aftermath that comes with all the changes that it has brought to us. This is something we have never seen before. In my lifetime, I never thought I would go through something like this. But you know what? There is a God in heaven who rules over the heavens. So I am with me, the leaders of Wisdom City Ministry, one of the best ministries to be in here in Harare. Started a few years ago, but by storm, has grown into multiple services, raising champions, young men, young women who are equipped with financial mindsets, with a leadership skill set that is so imprinted wherever you come across Wisdom City and its product. What a pleasure, what a joy to have Dr. S.M. Chirisa and Pastor Dorcas Chirisa, his wife. Pastor Advocate Dorcas Chirisa, greetings. And
Thank you, Apostle.
Dr. PhD, not Dr. PhD, Doctor Medicine, and also a finance guru, a businessman who runs 5 hospitals and a church and is married with 3 children, a champion, multifaceted, multi-dimensional, Dr. Chirisa. We greet you. Welcome to ABJ Ministries, and we welcome Wisdom City.
Amen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Apostle. It's an honor to be here.
We bless God.
Amen.
So, tonight, we are tackling an issue that we have been praying about without giving enough information to the church. We have switched on to our news, and it has been a headline as long as it became a pandemic. And the headline has majorly been in the bad news, the saddest of what you can hear. I was listening in the morning, and a health expert from WHO was actually saying, best case scenario, if a solution is not found, we are expecting 20 people in 1,000 to be exposed to the virus. And worst case scenario, 80 people in 1,000. Those are scary figures.
Yeah.
But you're a psychiatrist, you understand better. And you are a wife of a psychiatrist, you also understand better. Now, a few weeks ago, the nation was stunned because the Deputy Director of Psychiatry and one of the senior directors in the Ministry of Health, one of the most notable doctors in this country, 5 hospitals, and a person of faith, mighty man, mighty woman, whose faith is so renowned. You were exposed to the COVID-19 virus, but you beat it, you're strong, you're negative, and you are here. I want to ask you a few questions that I believe the church should hear today, and the whole nation of Zimbabwe, continent of Africa, and all who are in the Western, Eastern, Pacific, Asia Pacific, all the way to Latin America, the whole world as a whole. I want to ask you my first question. Can you share your experience with this pandemic? In brief, what was your experience?
All right. Thank you so much, Apostle, and greetings to our viewers from Harare, all over the world. We welcome you, and yeah, we love ABJ. Our experience was not easy. It was a bit challenging.
Okay.
Yes, because we started to show some symptoms with my husband
All right.
the same night, I believe. And yeah, I was asleep, I would feel some feverish, back pain, and all sorts of things. So, I would wake him up, Doc, I'm feeling this. And he'd be like, Dee, please go back to sleep. We'll talk tomorrow. So, so to me, Apostle, it was actually my first time to experience a fever. I'm not a flu person. I am not a fever person. So in the morning, that's when he was saying, Dee, it's fever.
All right.
Yeah. And, I said, okay, so that's the fever. But in my mind, in my thinking, I never thought it would be COVID. Because of the fear, because of what we've been seeing on TV, because of what we've been seeing in China, Italy, France, and all those countries. So it's never, I was like, where would I've gotten it from?
Yeah.
You see, so I never thought it would be COVID.
Okay.
So we went the whole week. I was better. He was a bit worse.
Okay.
So that week, I lost my sense of smell and I could literally smell anything. It was like, I would put perfume on my hand to be like water, and my back would be so, so painful.
All right.
And that's when we went for our first test, the RTD, and it came out negative. And we were so happy, we were so happy. And yeah, so we spent that whole week taking care of him, doing all we can until the Saturday, he went for the PCR and the test was positive.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Doc, you are a spiritual leader. You are an apostle. You are a teacher of faith. You have thousands of people look up to you for faith inspiration. And at the same time, you are a notable doctor working in the high offices that makes decisions for the whole medicinal fraternity of Zimbabwe. You were recently, before you resigned, you were the Secretary General for all the doctors under the Zimbabwe Medical Doctors Association, and bang, you positive. Yes, we know thousands are also in the bracket. It's everyone is at risk. But how did you handle it?
Yeah, thank you, Apostle, for this opportunity. It was not easy at that first time when I heard that it was COVID. Because one of the things which happened is we called the lab, and the lab refused to give us the result.
Okay.
And they said, we cannot give you your result. We'll call you later. Okay. However, because of my position, I then called a friend of mine who is a doctor who works in that lab. And then he then told me that the test is positive.
Okay.
And they are not allowed to give you a test. It's the city health which will then call you and then tell you the result. So we then knew. Okay. So I told D that the test is positive.
Yeah.
And we were in our bedroom, and we were shocked. We just held each other's hand, and we just went quiet. Okay. Nobody said anything to anybody, and then we just prayed, a very short prayer. Mm-hmm. And the prayer that I prayed was, Father, I commit this process to you.
All right.
And that was it.
Okay.
And so it wasn't easy because thoughts then came into my mind. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not sure where I contracted the COVID from. All right. I'd not seen any sick person or anything like that, but maybe, so it's probably because of the community, transmission that is now rampant.
Okay.
But my question was, why me? Why should I be the first medical doctor in this country to have COVID? Why me? And I became very ill. Okay. During that process, I had 2 weeks of severe fever, 2 weeks of not eating, lost weight, lost sense of smell. I was sweating, waking up in the middle of the night, changing sheets, changing pajamas. It was not easy.
All right.
I was coughing until I had chest pain. Mm. And then there are days that I would literally be in bed for most of the day, 20 hours.
So this thing is serious.
This thing is serious. Yeah. I think it has to do with, there are people that are going to be asymptomatic. Mm-hmm. There are people that are going to have to mild. I was probably between the moderate and severe. I even had the pulse oximeter. Okay. And at times I would check my oxygenation level and my saturation level, and it would be like 89, 90.
Okay.
And Dee would ask me, is that okay? And I said, yes, it's okay. Knowing that this is low, but if I tell her that it's low, I cause everybody to panic. But everybody was in a panic mode. Mm-hmm. The kids were in a panic mode. They would come around. They would my other child, who is 10 years now, he would come around and say, I know you are telling us that everything is going to be okay, so that we won't be afraid. And you just see the silence that is in the house. You know when our house is a noisy house, people will be doing whatever, but during that time it was silent. There was silence.
Yeah.
Because everybody was just afraid. And the fear was, we were going to die.
All right.
The people that work for us were also afraid. Some of them were, shed tears.
Okay.
Because all they had seen was what was happening in China and said, look, we are all going to die. And it was not easy because when the city health were now coming with, the city health cars, they would come up with these big cars and everybody would then see it turning and then they would put on their suits
PPEs.
and their PPEs and everybody would, the whole neighborhood would then say something is happening there. It wasn't easy. So there's a lot of stigma and a lot of fear. And we were in that bracket.
Okay.
Even being a doctor, one of the things that happened was when I got sick, there wasn't any clear protocol of treatment.
Okay.
So we asked, and people were giving you bits and pieces. So we had to do a lot of research. We had to do a lot of reading and say, what can we do? What can we use? And we are getting pieces from UK, pieces from here, pieces, and we can see what we can find here. But now things are better. There are now protocols. But at that time when we fell sick, there wasn't any clear protocol. It was almost like a death sentence at that time. And say, look, if you fall, and for me, I also had, predisposing conditions. I was hypertensive. I was hypertensive, and it's one of those things. Diabetes, hypertension. Those are the two main comorbidities. Or predisposing or pre-occurring conditions that make COVID very difficult.
All right.
So yeah, it was a ride, Apostle. It wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. It was not easy.
Sorry to cut you off. You became probably the first person in the higher corridors, or the first notable pastor and someone who is high up in the medicinal hierarchy to come out in the newspaper and say, I tested positive to COVID. From that, I saw a number of people, prominent people, following suit and doing the same. What's your advice to people who are going through the same ordeal, but they decide to keep it a secret for some reason? I don't know why. I know you cited stigma. What's your advice to them?
One of the reasons why I actually came out was that when I fell sick, because of the position that I held, the rumors, they spread so fast. And I was being called by people in South Africa and my lost brothers that I have last talked to 5 years, 10 years ago, and they were saying, we are hearing that you are now COVID. And, so one of the reasons why I came out was to dispel the rumors and say, look, yes, I'm positive. But one of the things was, I also wanted to encourage more people to come out, because we definitely need to destigmatize, decriminalize.
Excellent.
COVID.
Excellent.
I was told of a sad story about of somebody that we went to school with. He had COVID in the high density areas, and he had the same experience practically. But now when he said people are refusing for him to enter the shops that he knows. Even when he has to go and get water at the borehole, when he comes, people are still running away from him. And it's so stigmatizing. And he actually said that COVID is modern day leprosy. That people, so what we wanted to do was to encourage people to come out. Number one, to get treatment. Because people are suffering from COVID and they're keeping quiet.
All right.
And because of that, they are spreading it. they're not being isolated, and they are then spreading it to more. So a person will keep quiet and then spread it to others. But if they would come out, it would actually limit the transmission rate of COVID. And that's what we wanted to do.
Wisdom, maturity. Thank you very much. And now, my next question to you, Doc, is how do you advise someone who is going through a post-trauma? I've been working with a couple in the United States. They are pastors. So they both tested positive to COVID. And there is another crop of pastors in that same continent who are preaching that the church has failed. The church has failed because it's under lockdown. The church has failed because it's experiencing the same thing that everybody else is experiencing. Of course, mature Christians knows that it's an uninformed position because church does not set policy. Policy right now in Zimbabwe is saying the peg per gathering is 50. So it's not a matter of faith that I would defy a governmental order and take the number up to 1,000. That's recklessness. That's a breach of law, and it's criminal. But they are walking through it, and they just tested negative. But in talking to them, I was talking to them in the morning, that great couple, you feel there is a strong post-traumatic impact on them. How does someone deal with the trauma that comes with going through the same challenge that you have just walked out from?
It's a very difficult question, Apostle Java, because the trauma has to do with the disease itself.
Okay.
When you've walked through, especially if you had been symptomatic with COVID, you feel as if one of the things that will come and attack your mind is the fear of death.
All right.
Even being a pastor, I feared to die. In fact, one of the things that I did during that time was to write and finalize my will.
Yeah.
Because I was so sick, I wasn't quite sure whether I was going to rise from my bed of sickness. I was praying, but I didn't know whether my faith is strong enough.
And you're allowed because something will kill someone as long as you're on earth.
Yes. And after that, even after you have gone through the first phase of COVID and you are negative, depending to the extent that the COVID had affected you, there are some remaining damages that would have happened. We are reading of people with renal failures, people with blindness, people with blurred vision, people with pain, headaches, people with persistent coughing and all kinds of things. The COVID has done, but it has done so much damage, and such that in other countries they're actually planning to have post-COVID clinics.
All right.
That will just look at people that had COVID because they might actually have underlying things that were caused to COVID. And there's a fear of that. And for me, one of the things which happened is that after I actually recovered from COVID, I had a persistent cough for 3 weeks, I even tested negative, but the cough was there. I even went for x-rays. And in one of the x-rays, Dr. Ndlovu said one of your segment of lung had collapsed.
Okay.
And I said, so why am I still coughing? He said, no, it has damaged the parts, your bronchi and things like that. So there's still be irritation. So I was coughing violently, even after I had. And so you start to fear: has the virus come back? Is it a new? So you've got all these, and so there's a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression.
Yeah.
Why me? Why not others? So it also costs because. And
it's psychological.
It's psychological, and we were not at work for the whole month. And yet our living and what we do is dependent on us working. And while everybody was giving you oranges, but you would prefer 100 US, you know, but
Exactly.
because you're not going to work, but you still have expensive. So you've got all these things that are really coming and really attacking your mind as a man and or as a father, and say, what am I going to do? You know, and so it's really traumatic. It's really traumatic on your. I believe that anybody who is going through COVID needs strong psychosocial support.
Okay.
They actually, even if they feel that they need it, they need it. It must be actively given to them. It's one thing that we did not get in that, because we are the ones that usually give. But at this time, we're the one that needed it. And there was nobody who was able to give it to the extent that we needed it.
Ladies and gentlemen, everyone who is going through the ordeal of COVID-19 will need a post-psychotherapy support. And this must be noted by everyone. Dr. SM and Pastor D. Chirisa, they survived it. They beat it. They came out of it. Of course, it was an act of faith. But on top of that, it was also by their adherence to the rules and regulations that a person should go through when you are exposed to the pandemic. Selfless. They didn't keep the secret. So selfless. They didn't pass on the virus. So selfless. They have actually came out and said, we don't care who judges. We don't care who pontificates. We don't care who stigmatizes. We will come out and we will educate the world. And we will come on TV and we will go on all social media platforms and tell the world how they walked their journey. Many people are exposed. Many have died. And many are going through unfathomable, unbearable aftermaths of anxiety, stress, and emotional pain as a result of COVID-19. But today we have a couple who are not only faith leaders, but are also leaders in the society, and they work in medicine. But they went through it and they came out from it. And before we end, you are going to also learn how you can beat it from the early symptoms, from the mild stage, and from the undetectable window level. All that is important for you to know. And we shall know all that a normal biological person like you and me should know about COVID-19. Do not forget your health rules. Wear your mask, keep social distancing, sanitize your hands almost all the time, and be sure you keep your guard on. Every decision you make when you're leaving your house is a life or death decision. Every decision you make before you eat, and in how you are interacting and how you are interfacing and mingling with people is a life and death decision. But we thank God because we keep our faith on. God will heal you, but you have got to know that we are going through something the world has never seen. Fulfilling the scripture, Matthew 24 from verse 8. But we thank God because we have people, we have been victorious, and we have made it. We are coming into the second segment where we're going to go on the financial aspect, the aftermath of the economic and financial impact of the COVID-19 and how people should respond, plan, and also be able to reconfigure and see that they are not head paralyzed and they don't lose their minds as a result of the economic and financial difficulties that are escalating all over the world. Wisdom City Headship, headed by Dr. SM and Pastor D. Chirisa, here on www.abjtv.net. God bless you.